Folks, right now the political moment is understandably dominated by stories like Donald Trump's multiple federal indictments, the Hunter Biden scandal, which Republicans refuse to let die, and calls by Republicans to impeach President Biden. But it is important to remember that despite all of the scandal and the drama, the U.S. government is actually functioning, for the most part, under the leadership of President Biden and Democrats, and in ways that are bettering the lives of the vast majority of Americans, including red states and conservatives. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. So we try to cover the numerous successes executively and legislatively of the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, despite some pretty steep odds and a bad faith, disloyal, obstructionist cult of personality, which is the GOP. One such example of the Democrat/Biden administration successes is in the form of the Inflation Reduction Act, which, in addition to seeking to address inflation, which, by the way, has been falling consistently for, a year, I believe, at this point, was also looking to address the realities, the disturbing factual realities of anthropogenic climate change, which will have a colossal impact on not only our lives, as with wild, capricious weather, and also the lives of our children and our grandchildren and so forth, if you have any regard for that, but also in multiple sectors outside of climate. So, domestic jobs and immigration, right? Because people will be, looking to migrate and change location as the climate begins to affect where they live. So there was so much wrapped up in the IRA, and Time has a really good article about in particular, the jobs and manufacturing side of things, how we are seeing a transformation from President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. And we're not going to read the whole thing. I did read it. We're going to skim around at certain points. It's hard to take notes with highlights because they go away. But it's a really good article. And, it begins with a reporter talking about how in late July, he visited a steel mill in Gallatin, Kentucky, operated by the company Nucor. During his visit, he watched as the facility churned out massive rolls of low-carbon steel destined for its use in renewable infrastructure. Nucor stock prices increased nearly fivefold in the last 3 years, and the day before I visited, the company had announced blockbuster profits, citing in large part all the demand created by businesses racing to take advantage of money flowing from federal programs, including and especially the Inflation Reduction Act. So again, this is in Kentucky, a deeply red state. The Democratic president, Biden, his Inflation Reduction Act is having a massively positive impact in a red state like Kentucky. So Kentucky is far from alone. Across the country, the IRA has spurred hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in clean technology. Lithium-ion battery makers are opening factories near auto industry hubs to serve the growing electric vehicle market. Solar manufacturers are setting up shop in red states like Georgia, and old-school oil companies are investing in hydrogen. John Podesta, one of President Biden's senior advisors, it's a transformation of the economy. All right, and so again, there's so many examples here, but it's a quick and immediate effect, according to who is EY? Man, I just had this note. Greg Matlock, the impact was swift, it was quick, it was immediate, and doesn't appear to be slowing down. Matlock says within a week of the law's passage, he noticed tangible movement on investments from clients. Okay, companies have invested more than $270 billion in U.S.-based clean energy projects, wind, solar, battery, since the IRA became law, according to a report from the American Clean Power Association. Electric vehicle technology investments has totaled more than $130 billion, according to White House data. The private sector is expected to spend trillions more to take advantage of the incentives in the law over the next decade. People are deploying capital because of the IRA. If you talk to anyone in the finance world, where people are seeing uptake in capital formation is in the clean sector, says Podesta. And there's no question that the bill itself spurred this. And it talks about, again, how fossil fuel companies are actually delegating resources as well. There's a jobs report here. So let's see. They were armed with good news. A report from the Department of Energy showed that U.S. added more than 114,000 clean energy jobs last year. Okay. And again, later on in the article, it talks about fossil fuel companies here. Man, I just had this note. Again, it's hard to kind of do this in real time. Oh, yeah, there you go. Even as oil and gas companies double down on their commitments to fossil fuels, for example, they've also allocated billions in the past year to pursue technologies like hydrogen and carbon capture that can take advantage of federal subsidies. ExxonMobil is even exploring getting into the lithium game, hoping to exploit its knowledge of drilling to make money off the transition. And again, the article is vast. It's very well cited. You have hyperlinks as well. Again, we're not going to read it all, but the one other thing I wanted to point out here, and it's commensurate with videos that we've discussed before. Earlier this year, a contingent of Republicans whose districts are benefiting from clean energy investments pushed back when House Republicans proposed gutting the law as part of budget negotiations. Because if you remember, Kevin McCarthy and the Freedom Caucus and the MAGA Republicans wanted to stick it to President Biden when they were playing chicken with the debt ceiling, risking the entire global economy as well as the U.S. economy. And they were basically trying to blackmail the president, saying, hey, listen, if you don't want to tank the U.S. economy and tank the global economy, you have to, in addition to this, this, and this, gut the IRA. And thank God they failed. But Podesta likens it to the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, a law passed under Barack Obama that Republicans tried and failed to repeal. Once these plants are built, once these jobs are created, it's going to be very hard to reverse that. So I definitely urge you to check out this article. Again, it's a reminder that obviously there's a lot of attention-grabbing headlines going on, which obviously we need to cover because they are politically relevant. But there's more to politics than the sensationalism in the headlines. There's also policy, right? And unfortunately, very often the policies and the facts don't speak for themselves, and Democrats have to continue to step up. And we're seeing an improvement in this regard, by the way, of touting the facts, bragging about the record, saying, guys, look, I know there's still work to be done. I know not every problem is solved, but we have factually made progress to the extent that even Republicans are benefiting from it, which again is a reminder. The Democratic Party is not perfect, but it is objectively, based on record and policy, the vastly superior party. If you are looking to see legislation be passed in ways that benefit not only progressives and blue cities and blue states and marginalized groups, but also benefit conservatives and red states, vote Democrat. Republicans don't do crap for you. Unless you're a billionaire looking for tax cuts, your needs, your interests are not served by the GOP. If you are a conservative and you want to see your red state, your red county transform, if you want to see an influx of jobs, if you want to see lower unemployment, if you want to see wages rise, if you want to see better peaks in the stock market, if you want to see higher GDP growth, if you want to see economic improvement, regardless of whatever social policies that you may disagree with the Democrats on or certain progressive Democrats, you are still better off factually, according to the data, voting blue. So remember that in 2024 and vote accordingly.